In this video, I'm going to tell you about a recent project where I made some cyberpunk buildings like these ones here, using old MDF and a lot of experimenting. I like rocks. I like trees, dirt, walls, ruins, castles, everything natural and historical. But rocks hold a special place in my heart. You see, miniature rocks were some of the first tabletop terrain I ever purchased for tabletop games about 15 odd years ago. They've since been lost in time, but they were just grey pillars of stone with a green flocked base. I got them at a convention somewhere, sometime. Since then, my love for tabletop terrain has ebbed and flowed. It attracted me because I like how it tells a story on the tabletop. My love for a good castle remains, and I do enjoy history as a casual observer. But on the tabletop, my interest slowly moved towards science fiction, and let's be honest, rocks aren't very cyberpunk. I bought this box of MDF terrain back in 2015 as something I could store easily and also assemble when needed. It's just a very generic industrial vibe, something actually very fitting of Necromunda. It's got scaffolding, walkways, vents, all very industrial. Unfortunately, it's only really been used a handful of times and it's stayed in storage for years as life just kept me distracted with other things. Until last month, when I grabbed a hobby knife and cut, glued, painted something a little different and something a little bit new. This something new was inspired by a certain YouTuber called 52 Miniatures. The host was talking about a terrain project of his own where he brought some items from a company called Brutal Cities. I'll put the links in the description below. The aesthetic of this particular style hooked me completely, and I knew I needed something like that in my life. Futuristic but not grimdark, and something covered more in neon lights instead of skulls and religious iconography. I also had just discovered a sci-fi game called Stargrave, and it was that clean science fiction look. A mix between cyberpunk, Star Trek, a little bit like the Infinity War game, if you recognise that. That was something that was really missing in my life. So with all this in mind, I just decided to build something. I didn't really plan it very well. I just browsed the internet for some rough ideas, and I just went in head first with a goal to see of what would happen. I chucked the materials out in front of me and just followed my inspiration. The only strict design feature I really wanted to follow was that it had to be modular or stackable in some capacity. I wanted things that not only could be stored nicely in a storage box, so it's out the way, but also it could stack differently on the tabletop, so it just wasn't the same repetitive pieces every single game. Therefore, I started with a rough box, and in a flurry of MDF bits, toothpicks, and sticking myself to PVA glue, I ended up with all of this. The next hurdle was painting it. So I started by spraying it grey, because I wanted like a concrete or dull metal vibe. I knew I wanted it to be neutral to make room for the wild colours I planned to add. You know, those classic sci-fi neon cyberpunk kind of stuff. I wanted to create some texture like concrete, and this was achieved with stippling on a lighter grey and then a bit of white after that. I thought this technique was a bit pants when I heard about it, but it is honestly just incredible how you can give the illusion of 3D texture on a 2D surface. I absolutely love it. I'll be doing this for all of the buildings. After that, I wanted to get some bold colours in there to really play off the whole sci-fi neon vibe. I chose a bit of orange here and there, which I think worked pretty well. I got the straight edge with a ruler and a pencil and then just filled in the gaps. I wish I used masking tape because I think that would have given me a better line, but unfortunately I just didn't have any in my drawers at the time. So I'm afraid I don't really have any footage of the other bits I painted, like the little details like the door and the window. More because I was unsure if this video was even ever going to be made. However, I can show you the final results of what I've painted at the moment. So for each shop, shack, whatever you want to call them, there's a single bold colour and then a bit of extra spot colours. I wish I could explain the specific idea behind each one, but I need to stress I did not plan this before I sat down at my desk. For instance, this blue shack here was only this blue because my paint pot detonated when I squeezed out a little bit. There was like a little small amount that was stuck in the top and I squeezed too hard and it just exploded all over my desk. So to make sure the paint wasn't wasted, I just threw it on the model and decided to paint it like this. The glowing neon light, or like window, that was achieved with a blob of white and then when that dried, I brushed over a very diluted light green. It's just a single diluted layer, and I think that works pretty well to give the impression of either a light source or something kind of glowing from inside. The graffiti on the walls, by the way, is a bit of a spontaneous decision that ultimately I'm actually really happy with. Without it, I thought the walls would be pretty boring, and I like to think this had a little bit more story and a pop of colour. For instance, is this particular town being hounded by certain gangs? Is it teenage delinquency? Or are these just slogans for like an anti-political, anti-war, or pro of that? I just think a lot of these little details, they don't really need to be explained too much, but you just put them into a scene as background flavour and it really adds a bit of depth as to what you're trying to build. As you can see with this project and the amount of stuff I've built so far, I do have a lot of painting to do, and so I will give an update video in the future. Alongside, more than likely, some Stargrave themed content when that comes round. For instance, I'm going to be building my own crew with a story and the like, and I'd really like to share that with everybody. The ultimate plan is to use this terrain, in fact, in a Stargrave campaign. So, that's it from me. This is hopefully the first video of many on this channel as I try to make more of an effort to share my hobby with the masses. Please leave any thoughts you have in the comment section below. And otherwise, thank you for your time. It means a lot. Take care.